US President Donald Trump has proclaimed victory following yesterday's first presidential debate against the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden.
By every measure, we won the debate easily last night. I think he was very weak. He looked weak. He was whining. Yeah, we won the debate by almost every poll that I saw. If you look at the various polls, I looked at about 6 of them. We won every one of them. So, no, I don't mind debating him. I hear he wants to get out of the debates. I don't know. That's up to him.
Well, the conduct on display in the debate led the Commission on Presidential Debates to announce that they would be making changes to the format. Here's what they said. Last night's debate made clear that an additional structure should be added to the format of the remaining debates to ensure a more orderly discussion of the issues. It's time now for my international panel. All right, as always, former Senator Cory Bernardi in Adelaide, and in Sydney, James Morrow, opinions editor, Daily Telegraph, and of course co-host of Sky News Outsider, and soon to head to the US for the big campaign wind-up. James, I've read and watched your responses to the debate. You've noted that the moderator, Chris Wallace, gave Biden an easy ride. That's what you think. And his responses appeared fairly scripted. 24 hours later, what's your take from it all?
Look, I think that this response from the Committee on Presidential Debates that they need more structure is actually the last thing that they need. The whole reason why that debate fell apart last night was because there was too much artificial structure. There was too much of Chris Wallace, running down the clock and jumping in and interfering with the natural ebb and flow of the interchange between the two candidates. If anything, we actually need a more freewheeling debate because that's where we get the really interesting lines out of both candidates. Some of the most interesting things, I thought, were all of the landmines that Joe Biden laid for himself, which are going to blow up on him in the coming weeks, like, that he doesn't support the Green New Deal. Well, sorry, Joe, it's on your website, the line about Antifa and that it's just an idea. Well, tell that to everybody who's had their stores smashed in. So I think, what's actually needed is more, not less, robust discussion.
I think, Cory, though, you've been in, a political sort of hairy moment plenty of times in the Senate, and you've watched and participated in estimates debates. What happened, I think, was too much almost of Trump and the moderator saving Biden. You've got to shut up and let him make some of the mistakes that we all think are inevitable, don't you?
Yes, Peter, you do, in essence. I think Donald Trump hurt his own campaign because there were times when Joe Biden was about to lapse into his incoherence and Trump interjected and gave him a new school of thought. And Chris Wallace, I thought, was particularly partisan. And this is where it concerns me. If they're trying to impose some new restrictions, well, those restrictions are going to have to be judged by someone. And let me tell you, in my observation, Donald Trump does not get a fair go from anyone that they choose. Now, they chose a Fox host, in this case, to be a moderator, and yet he's a never-Trumper. They've chosen someone from C-SPAN to come up and then someone from another commercial channel later on. You can bet your bottom dollar they all hate Donald Trump and want the establishment back. So he will never get a fair go. And quite frankly, I found yesterday's debate rather entertaining, and I'm a bit tired of all these Johnny-come-latelys who come in and say how unedifying it was while they pontificate from their luxury North Shore mansions or wherever it may be, Peter.
All right, well, James, I've got to go to you. The next debate obviously will be the VP debate. There's one only, obviously 3 presidential candidate debates, but one for the VP. Mike Pence, Kamala Harris, it will be fascinating, and that's next week.
Yeah, well, look, and, I won't be watching it from a North Shore mansion. I'll be watching it from a, humble inner West workers' cottage, Peter. But the debate is going to be absolutely fascinating because these are two characters we don't see a lot of. We don't see almost any of Mike Pence at all. He's been very much in the background, yet he is said to be somebody who does a lot of the deals, does a lot of the work behind the scenes. Now, Kamala Harris, though, wow, she's going to be really interesting because she's got this kind of lefty authoritarian streak that if they can start to push that out there, see what she says about the Green New Deal, see what she says about Black Lives Matter and the protests and the riots and all of that. She's kind of the woke candidate that's supposed to bring the whole ticket to the left and bring those, far left voters on to have some enthusiasm for Biden. This is going to be, I think, possibly more interesting than what we saw the other night.
And she'll be auditioning, as we know, for the top job, not the second job. Cory, the AFP today announced that they'll be recruiting specialists in the Mandarin language, and they want to go in and try and recruit Australian Chinese community members to work on a whole lot of cases of foreign interference. Now, I have to say, the AFP quite rightly says we don't have enough Mandarin speakers, we've got to recruit some. But given how Chinese operators have infiltrated our university sector, I mean, goodness me, I hope they recruit pretty carefully.
Well, that was my thought exactly, Peter. Firstly, I'm happy they've actually publicly said this, though, because it does acknowledge what we've long suspected and had some confirmation of. The Chinese Communist Party are at work in every aspect of Australian society, and we've got to root it out, get them out of the country and go about looking after ourselves. But the diaspora, we know, has been seeded with some people whose true allegiance is still to the Chinese Communist Party, and they're at work here in this country. So you want to make sure that the vetting procedures are absolutely pristine, because even when we've had publicly elected officials, Peter, let's remember some of them have been prepared to trade their allegiance in an informal sense or a business sense or in an advocacy sense for dollars. And if that happens to elected public officials, you can only imagine what happens in the business community at large.
And just a very quick comment before we go, Corey. Taiwan's not very happy with us. They are a bit disappointed we haven't progressed a free trade agreement. Trade Minister Simon Birmingham, I know you yourself are a strong supporter of Taiwan. What's happened with that?
Well, of course, they're too scared to do anything for upsetting the Chinese beast. I mean, we should actually recognise Taiwan very promptly. I think that's in our interest. But, of course, the politicians are a bit too scared to do so, Peter.
All right, Corey Bernardi, James Morrow, thank you for your time. Look forward to your analysis on the Kamala Pence face-off next week. Thank you.